Hi everyone, this is Meg at Chasing Retro. Today I would like to bring you along as I show you how to make a faux vintage Western Union telegram. I love making these to go in my historical journals that I want to sort of bring to life with a story behind them. And so there is an excellent resource for getting a blank Western Union telegram. I will link it below. It is called digitalscrapbook.com, and it is most of the time the image that I use. They have a white one, and then they also have sort of a, well, here it is right here. It's sort of a manila envelope color, you know, or one of those tab envelopes colors. But I just printed out on, actually I printed it on ivory paper just to make it, you know, more aged looking on the back. And so the first thing that you need to know about telegrams is kind of how they are set up. Normally, of course, the message was wired, and so it came in a machine that sort of typed it out. I'm not being super technical, guys. I'm just interpreting it the best way I can so that we can translate it into something that's authentic looking for a journal. But it would be printed out almost in a typewriter type fashion on a machine and then cut into strips, or maybe it came as a strip, I'm not sure. And then a person would sit and put it together and glue it down onto one of these forms, and it would be folded up and sent on its merry way to the recipient. And so there was sort of a standard way of doing the text on one, but the more you look at them, if you were to Google vintage telegram images, they don't always follow the same protocol. There's a lot of variation in it. So really it's up to you on what you want to do on your own. It doesn't, obviously you're not going to actually send it to someone, so it doesn't need to be super exact. Just have fun with it. But there are a few key components to telegrams. Normally in the left top, so that would be right about here, there would be just a bunch of letters and numbers. And the only thing I can figure is that it was just sort of a way to tell the zone that maybe it was coming from and the zone it was going to. On the right top, you would have the time and the date. And normally with the time, it would have the time zone listed as well. And then you would have who it is to. You wouldn't write to, you would just put the person's name. And normally you would put equal signs on both sides of that, showing, you know, sort of an attention getting symbol, showing who the telegram is to be sent to. And then right underneath it, sometimes indented, you would put the address. Then you would have the text block. It can be as short as a sentence or it can be a paragraph. I think you have to pay per line. So it depends on how much needed to be said in a format like this and how much could wait until the person could talk to you in person. And then you would have the signature. Sometimes it's just one name, like Mark, and other times it would be Lieutenant Colonel, you know, whoever. Optional is a stamped date. Sometimes this would be stamped when the telegram was received, normally in an office. And so if you have a date stamp, you could put it here. I don't have a date stamp, obviously, that goes back, you know, into the 1930s or something. So I use some of my little rubber stamps, and I'll show you that at the end. So the first thing we need to do is we need to type all of this information. If you make a mistake, it's no big deal. Just start over on a new line, and you can cut and paste the pieces that you have to create your telegram. So this will be a little loud. I will mute it when I'm actually typing, but I have a page of ivory copy paper that I'm going to use to make it a little more aged as well. And I'm going to put this in my typewriter. Another thing that you need to know is telegrams are always, or at least as far as I've seen, always all caps. So if you have a way to lock, I have a lock button down here that lets me lock my capitals. It'd be a lot easier than holding down shift the whole time. If you don't have a typewriter, that's cool, that's fine. Use a computer and use Google Docs or whatever word processing you use. And if you go to a free font site like dafont.com, D-A-F-O-N-T, you can find some excellent typewriter type fonts. Some of them have been grungied and vintaged up, and a lot of those are free for personal use. So you can do that instead, print it out and then cut it. So we're gonna go ahead and type, and then we will progress after that to the next step. Here we have the text. After I started typing, I remembered that my typewriter equal key is broken. So I will have to either just omit that for mine, or I'll have to pencil it in with a pen separately. But I've forgotten about that. But if you have an equal sign, go for it. Let me set this out of the way. Okay. Now, let me zoom in just a little so you can watch me work. Okay, so here we have the finished form, and I'm just gonna get a nice sharp pair of scissors. So here is the little code numbers and letters that would go in the top left. It's really hard to cut straight, but do the best you can. There is the date. I decided not to put the time zone because I decided that my sender was overseas and I did not really want to look up time zone abbreviations for that. So I just put PM and then the date. So you can make up any kind of story this way. It's so fun. Use your imagination. That is a boo-boo, so ignore that. I forgot I had my typewriter on caps lock and I tried to type a number. Here is an address of the recipient. Here is the recipient's name. So though this is one large text block, a paragraph rather, to make it authentic, I'm going to cut it into individual strips. It's a little more tedious, but if we're trying to make it as authentic as possible, we need to try to do that. So my family has a little bit of history with the, the wireless communication realm. My great granddaddy was a radio man / telegraph guy on a ship during World War I. And my grandpa, when he was in high school, think he might have started when he was in middle school. He saved up his money and bought a bicycle, and he delivered Western Union telegrams. And not long after he finished high school and turned 18, he signed up for the U.S. Air Force, and he entered the Air Force. Back then it was United States Army Air Force. He entered that service in either the end of, I think it was the very, very end of 1941 or the very beginning of 1942. So who knows how many of these telegrams my grandpa carried around on his bike. That's just amazing to think about. Happy news, sad news, all kinds of news. Okay. Okay, this is the tedious part, but you are just going to glue them kind of like I showed you at the beginning on this little cheat sheet. I guess I can move that down and show you again. This is where a fine tip glue bottle works really well. They don't have to be 100% straight because probably a lot of these, especially during the war, were thrown together pretty rapidly in order for them to get out, and so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so here is the recipient. I'm going to leave the equal signs off, but that is personal choice. You're welcome to do that if you like. My glue is clogged again. Hold on one second. That would be something that you could add if you have a way to add that. Usually the recipient is indented just a little bit, but not much. So I love to make these. It's kind of fun to just make some that don't really have a purpose, like you're not making them for a journal. Just make some that say things like, I heard the baby was born, congratulations, can't wait to meet the little one. Or you could do a birthday, series of birthday telegrams, or even, you know, a romantic note or two. And just put them in your homemade ephemera stash and pull it out when you just want a little something interesting to add to a journal. And honestly, at first glance, your journal recipient will have to look twice because these look pretty authentic. The only thing that would make it authentic is if, like, my typewriter does a serif font, and I believe the typewriter or the telegram machine did a sans serif font, which means none of the little lines, the little decorative lines at the end of a T or an F or something like that. I have a couple of telegrams in my stash that were sent to family members. I have one from World War I letting my great-grandmother know, my great-great-grandmother know that my great-grandfather had been injured. He was in the 118th Infantry right after the U.S. entered the war in 1918. And he was put into a, let me see, I might need to move this over a little more. He was put into a hospital that, interestingly enough, was a horse racetrack that had been turned into a hospital. And then I have another one. Unfortunately, my great uncle passed away in World War II. His aircraft went missing and then was reported as lost. And so I have I don't have the original, but I have a copy of that telegram. Okay, so here we go. Here it is in all of its glory. It's so fun to do these. I mean, I cannot tell y'all how much fun this is and addictive it is. Okay, now you can leave this as is, or you can have a little more fun with it. Diane at Shawcraft One has an excellent video on how to age paper to make it look like an aged digital, to make it look more vintage and authentic. And so I'm not going to go through all of the ways that she says to do that. You can go watch her video. I will link her channel below, but I'll just put this on fast speed and kind of use some of the things that I learned from her to make this look more authentic and old and like it's really been through it. So here we go. Does this look more like something that has been stashed in a keepsake box or an attic for several years? After you do that process, you'll probably have to go back through and glue down some of the corners of the strips that you glued down because they will want to lift up a little. But I think this is awesome and fun and a really, I mean, obviously we don't often get our hands on authentic pieces of ephemera like this, but you can fake it really well by just using a few little tips and tricks and utilizing things that you have at home like a typewriter or a computer printer. So fun. I hope this helps you get inspired to make some telegrams for your journals. And that's it for today. Have a wonderful afternoon. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.